Hello and welcome to my beginner guide for Escape from Tarkov. My name is Freakatoid, and today we will be going over all the information that a brand new player will need to know before their first real raids in this game. The general idea here is to give as much guidance in the most relevant time possible. It will be categorized as cleanly as possible to ensure there isn't too much overlap between drastically different information, while also being available as a way to navigate topics the viewer wishes to see. Before we begin, I must add that it will help to have a Sherpa or an experienced friend who is willing to help you along with any details I may miss. They will also make the game much more enjoyable for you, even if things go badly. And trust me, things in Tarkov will go badly. With all that in mind, let's begin with the very first thing that every new Tarkov player will see. Upon booting up the game, you will select your language, your character, and your name. The character selection is the very first decision that you will make that has a significant impact on the start of your game. It starts with your faction. There really is no significant advantage that one faction holds over another as of the current patch in this video, apart from one map in the game. What your faction really determines is your voice lines and your starting equipment, with your choices being between USEC and Bear. USEC represents the Western faction, or the NATO faction as I call it. Your starting gear will be composed of rifles like the M4 and SMGs like the MP5, along with some NATO-style armor and equipment. Bear, on the other hand, represents the Russian faction, composed of many AK-style weapons and Russian armor. The voice lines also vary depending on the selections you make in the character select screen. Again, there really is no clear advantage with one faction over the other. It's simply a matter of taste between the initial equipment you are provided with at the start of the game that really matters. Alright, so you've selected your character, and now you're ready to start learning about the game, right? Not so fast. There is one thing we should mess with before anything else goes on: the settings. First and foremost, go to your interface and graphics settings. I highly recommend searching around the internet for some recommended settings that will both improve your visibility and, more importantly, your computer's performance. If you have a friend who is experienced with Escape from Tarkov, I would highly recommend asking them to help you with these settings. Otherwise, I'll provide a link right here for the settings that I currently use for this game. All good now? Nice. You can mess with some of the control settings here if you want to, but for the remainder of this video, I'm going to be sharing information based on the default controls, so be warned. Now let's move to your character's gear. Either from the main menu or the tabs below, opening the character screen will be a bit overwhelming at first. Let's go ahead and separate the screen here. On your right is your stash. Every item in this box is also all the items you keep between all of your future raids. Everything from valuables, junk, weapons, ammo, armor, food, and medical supplies are all stored here. Even your money takes up space in your stash. All you really need to grasp here is that anything that is in your stash will stay, and anything that you take out of your stash, you have the possibility of losing. Now, let's pay attention to the other part of your screen, the character's inventory. There's a lot to unpack here, so we'll go one at a time. We'll start with the headset, which pretty much any Tarkov player with a few raids under their belt will tell you is one of the most important pieces of gear to have on. Headsets provide many benefits regarding the audio you hear in raid. It'll tone down noises like wind and ambient noises and boost the volume of distant gunfire, voices, footsteps, and even movement through foliage. There is a difference in quality between all the headsets in the game thus far. At the moment, it's important to know that having any headset on is drastically important. We'll skip around a little bit to the body armor. Body armor is a bit complicated, but I'll give you the short and sweet version. The armor that is provided can be divided between two parts. soft armor, and plate armor. Soft armor is basically the entire visual part of the armor, which usually covers a majority of the upper body. Typically, this part is of a lower protection value or class of armor. Most soft armor in the game will be from class 1 to class 3, which is sufficient enough for most of the early game ammo you'll come across. It's also the main durability of the armor, and must be repaired if damaged. Plate armor works a bit differently. Plates range from anywhere between class 3 and class 6 armor, and when slotted, it will cover a small but usually center part of your body from higher armor rated ammo. These plates range from size, protection areas, and compatibility between all types of armor and armored rigs. The best feature about them is that they can be swapped out. I don't recommend bringing extra plate armor into raids, but what is possible is swapping out the plates for better versions you may find in raid. Typically, one of your biggest worries when body armor is the weight of it, and it tends to be one of the heavier pieces of equipment you never want to take off. Branching off body armor, we'll look at helmets, which in short does not have plates you can attach to boost the protection of it. Helmets instead have extra components you can attach, which either protect more of your head, or in some cases will boost the protections of the helmet already provides, like layers. However, armor class for helmets is not the only stat that players will look at. Ricochet chance is another quirk of helmets that will sometimes be prioritized over actual class of protection, as a high ricochet chance may protect you from an otherwise impossible to stop bullet. Depending on the helmet you get, you may not have the ability to wear a headset, with the usual trade-off being that you have more protection instead. Your face cover's main purpose is to help conceal you. Having a little bit more camouflage may help you not get noticed, even for a second or two. There is the rare case where the face cover is the alternative to a helmet, but you really won't find too much of this in the early game. Now let's get to the bread and the butter of your loadout, your weapons. So to start with, I'll let you know that the on-sling and on-back slots are no different from each other apart from on-sling being what the game considers to be your primary weapon. There is no limit or special rule that follows with these slots, and it does not matter how large or small the weapon is. The only rule these slots follow is that the holster can only hold pistols and the sawed-off shotgun, while the two primary slots are for the rest of the weapons. I personally do not recommend filling every slot when going into raid, for both weight purposes and for the fact that you can use them to store any weapon you may find in raid. As for your tactical rig and your pockets, these serve the same purpose. The general idea is that you want all items associated with quick usage here. Everything from extra mags, top-loading ammo, medical supplies, grenades, and others should be slotted here. It should also be known that any open slots with sufficient room will automatically store your unloaded mags during the reload of your weapon. Therefore, it's a good idea to leave room in your rig or pockets so you don't suffer from a reserve shortage later. Still, not every run is going to see you packed to the T with every slot needed, so slap some loot in these slots. And one last thing, some armor is actually an armored rig combo, so in the event that you find such armor, you'll need to transfer what you can and unequip both your armor and your rig for it. Your backpack slot has to be one of the weirdest but simplest slots. There are all kinds of backpacks in this game, ranging from small, large, straightforward, and weird. If possible, this is where you save weight on your loadout. Typically, people want to bring in the largest backpack they can, and while that is typically the best option, you should be a little more concerned with how much the backpack weighs. Your backpack is really just a giant storage box on your back. There is no quick use option in them either, so anything that you want to bring in that could wait up for a moment of peace can be stored here no problem. It can also be used to store large mags like drums in the moment that you're about to prepare for a bigger fight. There really isn't anything special you can do with these backpacks. but they are the expendable piece of your gear set. In moments where you need as much mobility in a fight as possible, you can quickly discard your backpack from your character with a keybind you'll find in the settings. Just remember where you left it. The last piece of your gear set is your secure container. This piece of equipment will only exist on your PMC and serves the purpose of being the only way you can guarantee the absolute safety of items you want to be in raid. Some items like weapons, special sights, and specific valuables can't be kept in this secure container, but just about everything else is fair game. Now, what you should keep in these containers, if anything at all, is purely up to you. Typically, you will see players keep their best ammunition in this container at the bare minimum. The important thing to remember is that you can freely move items in and out of these containers, while other players cannot. Lastly, there is a term known as found in raid that is lost on items that are placed in here and kept in the event that you die. Just know that this is only really important to know with quest items at the moment. It won't be until later down the road where you should really care about found in raid items in other cases. Now that we have covered a majority of the information regarding your equipment and everything that fits into these slots, let's briefly cover the important things that you should bring with you to ensure your survival. And the most complicated of these is medical items. We'll start off with the part that is easiest to understand, which is your health. Your total health value is listed at the bottom of your screen once you navigate towards the health tab from your inventory. However, you'll see that your total health is distributed across multiple parts of your body. This distribution is part of the cause for confusion with how healing works in this game, but also adds to the realism and difficulty. While your total health may be high, you could be missing a limb entirely, which can cause problems worse than having your entire body lightly damaged. But let's bring you back to the initial question you have, which is, how do you heal? Simple. You need a medkit, or something related. You actually have a few of these within your starting equipment. Regardless of your game edition, you should have AI2 kits and car first aid kits. Both of these are examples of medkits that you can use to directly restore health. The best part about medkits in this game is that it actually tells you the exact amount of health that they are good for restoring. For example, the AI2 kit is good for restoring a total of 100 health, while the massive Grizzly First Aid Kit is good for 1800 health in total. Now, this does not mean that they will use their entire healing capacity in one use. In fact, it will not always even fully restore a body part in one use. This number is purely a durability for the medkit until it is used up or destroyed. On screen now is several different medkits that are in the game. Now, there is actually one condition that you cannot heal with any medkit that restores health, and that is when a limb is destroyed, or commonly referred to as having a blacked limb. This condition is when a body part completely runs out of HP and becomes unable to perform its primary function. For example, having one of your legs blacked will cause your character to limp around and causes you to lose the ability to sprint. Having your stomach blacked will cause your character to constantly cough and groan in pain, along with dramatically increasing how quickly your character loses hydration and energy. Losing arms will cause primary problems with the speed of your weapon handling and how steady you hold them. Overall, you lose major functionality and the ability to quickly revitalize body parts once they completely go out. The only way to heal this condition is to use specialized surgical kits. Performing surgery on yourself is a lengthy process as well, meaning you may not have the luxury of doing this in the heat of a firefight. Once the surgery is completed, however, your health with that body part will be restored to 1 HP, with your max HP being reduced by an amount that depends on the surgical kit that was used. This means that after you perform surgery, you must revert to replenishing that limb in the usual manner. Now that about does it for healing, right? Wrong. There are many status effects in this game that also need medical attention. Bleeding is one of the more critical conditions that you should attend to at the earliest convenience, and it comes in two different forms of importance. A light bleed is the most common bleed you'll come across, and it drains 1 health every 6 seconds. While not an immediate issue, it should not be ignored, as it will eventually kill you if left unchecked. This can be corrected using a bandage or an army bandage. Most medkits can also heal this at the cost of some of the medkit's available health pool. A heavy bleed is a very fast draining status effect that should be taken care of at the literal first opportunity you have. This bleed will drain around 1 HP every 4 seconds until it is dealt with. This can be corrected using a Cat Tourniquet, an S-Mars Tourniquet, or a Calloc B. Again, most of the medkits can also heal this bleed at a greater cost to health pool. Ending the status effect doesn't happen when you heal it, however, as it is replaced with the Fresh Wound status effect. This effect can be reverted back to a heavy bleed if the same limb suffers major damage like getting shot. Sprinting and jumping may also cause this to turn into a light bleed. Basically, you may need both a light bleed and a heavy bleed bandage to completely deal with a heavy bleed. A fracture is a status effect which causes your limb to exhibit your loss of function just like a blacked out limb. You are still able to heal the health of this limb to 100%, but as long as the fracture exists, you will not recover the full use of said limb. It should be noted that only the arms and legs can experience this status effect. You can fix a fracture using a splint or an aluminum splint. The Grizzly medkit is the only medkit that is able to fix a fracture, but strangely, the Serve 12 surgery kit is also capable of fixing fractures. Now, there is actually a temporary fix to a blacked or a fractured limb. Painkillers are a type of med that doesn't actually heal you, but does restore full use to limbs and will quiet your character down from coughing and groaning. There are tons of different painkillers to choose from, some with a ton of uses available. Typically, a painkiller will require you to sacrifice some energy or hydration, but is sometimes necessary to get yourself out of a fighting disadvantage. This can also be popped pre-fight to make sure that any damage you take in that fight doesn't suddenly put you in a bad position. Last little bit of info. Sprinting with a blacked or fractured leg will cause damage to your character, and they will audibly wince in pain as you do so. Ammo is the next major component in your kit, and the very first thing you should pay attention to is the caliber of the weapon you plan on using. Most of the weapons in the game will have a display where you can easily tell what caliber it fires. Well, most of them. Out of your starting equipment, you should have ammunition that fits them, but later down the line, you will need to find or purchase the ammo that your weapons need. If you're carrying ammo that does not work in your weapon, then you have brought a useless weapon. Compatibility does not end there, however, as your magazines may mislead you if you're not paying attention. A prime example of this is your standard AKM mags, which is capable of holding 7.62 by 39mm ammo. You know, your standard AKM round. This mag can also hold 3.66 TKM ammo, which is not compatible with your standard AKM. While we're on this subject, you may even have weapons that look like an AK, but are not an AK. So earlier, when discussing the slots for tactical rigs and pockets, I mentioned that this is where your reserve magazine should go. But what about weapons that you top load? Top loading is just a different reload that, rather than removing and replacing a loaded magazine, you actually just load all the ammo into the weapon from some kind of opening or port. The most common example of something like this would be an SKS with a 10-round magazine, or an M700 where you haven't brought any reserve mags. Tube-fed shotguns also work in this way, except it's not called the same thing. In these cases, you would instead keep the ammo for the weapon in your technical rig or your pockets. One of the most important bits of information that a player always will want to know is, what is the best ammunition I can use? To be frank, it's not the easiest question to answer, because the ammo itself is never the full story of how it will perform. You would expect a bolt-action rifle in a game to have the logic of having better armor-piercing capabilities than an M4, right? Not in this game. In this game, ammo generally performs the same across any gun that it is loaded into. Bullet velocity and accuracy are really the only noticeable changes that these rounds will experience between different weapons. This means that the damage and the armor penetration remains the same between weapons that use the same ammo type. In summary, a Scar H in full auto will hold the same damage per bullet as the M700 bolt-action rifle. So each weapon of the same caliber does the same damage. So it's all about caliber? Kind of, but there are variations to each type of ammo. Let's take 9x19 for example. There are 9 different types of bullets here, ranging from ammo that will deal 100 damage per shot, to ammo that will pierce up to class 4 armor like it's paper thin. Every caliber of ammo in this game has at least a few different options that vary in its ability to pierce body armor and deal actual health damage. Typically, high armor-piercing ammo is regarded as the best choice between all weapons. But there is a usefulness in ammo that prioritizes extreme flesh damage as well. And of course, there is all kinds of ammo that fits between these two extremes. These hybrid ammo types will be far easier to acquire in their overperforming variations, and will typically be easier to get in larger quantities. Your level and access to better gear will also determine the strength of ammo you'll be able to consistently get your hands on. So you have all this nice gear, but what happens when you lose it? I'm not gonna lose it, freak, because I won't die. Oh, we all thought that at first, didn't we? Look, this gear that you have, it's not meant to last. It's meant to give you a boost while you learn and figure out your playstyle. Especially when a new wipe brings new additions that, let's be real, are meant to kill you. Pretty soon, you'll be scavenging for used and beat up weapons, ammo that doesn't compare to what you were given, and armor that makes sure you have a fair fight against a single scav. This is where the traders in this game show their true purpose. So you may take a look at some of these traders and not even be remotely impressed at their selection. And you would have every right to do so. In the beginning, they sell you some pretty low quality stuff and next to no way to customize your weapons. On top of all of that, not every exchange uses money. To quickly address this, I will start by saying that a majority of traders will be using rubles as their currency, with Peacekeeper being the general exception to this rule, using dollars instead. Almost all of these traders do have some barter trades thrown in there as well. The most notable of this is Mechanic, who will have some pretty top-notch gear available that he wishes to receive items for instead of money. These can be items that you find in Raid, or even some of them that you can buy. You can sell items to these traders as well, but each trader does have items that they will not purchase. Some traders are worth much more than others when it comes to selling, like Therapist for example. If you come across any item, sell to Therapist if possible, as she will buy the item from you for the most money. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Fence will buy just about any item you get out of Raid possible, but he will purchase it at the cheapest price possible. The traders right now may not look like the best source of gear, but you can level them up and gain access to better gear. If you pay attention to the little stat sheet next to their profile, you can see that they provide you with conditions to gain a loyalty level. This is a spread of a player level, rep level, and money spent requirement. Player level and money spent is pretty self-explanatory. Successful raids with some exchanges between you and the trader in question will eventually lead you to these conditions being filled, but reputation may not be immediately apparent. You can increase your reputation with traders by completing their tasks, which are just the name of quests in this game. Before any explanations of these quests are done, accept all available quests. If you do not accept the task that is available, no progress will be made with these quests, and you may run into a situation where a Sherpa may take you to every location a quest requires, only to find out that you have to do it all again because you never started the quest to begin with. Well, now that you have accepted all the quests, let's talk about the different kinds of quests that you have. At the start, you should have about 4. One from Prepper, one from Therapist, one from Skier, and Mechanic. These quests actually do a decent job at exposing you to what you should expect in the future. Firstly, almost all of these objectives are map-specific. In this case, the only place you can progress them is on Ground Zero. They all expose you to what you should expect from the tasks you can accept in the future. Mechanics Saving the Mold gives you the most complex of all of these, requiring you to find 2 different locations on the map before looting and using a special key to open another special room, only to loot a special quest item that must be extracted in the same raid. Once out of the raid, you must remember to turn in this task item to complete the task. This may seem like an overcomplicated set of rules here, but to be honest, it's pretty standard to the later quests you'll have to do. Prepper's task will involve getting some kills in a few more specific locations. Therapist's task will again be a location that you must find on top of having to turn in some meds found in raid. I should note real quick that these meds do not have to be found in raid on your PMC. You can load into a raid on your scav and then turn them in that way as well. Skier's task will involve using a specific extract on the map. It may seem extra, but this is the norm for a task list you'll have later, and it does get worse. So is it worth to even go for the quests then? Absolutely. On top of these quests being the only real way to increase reputation with most of the traders, some will even grant you the ability to buy items from traders all on their own. Each task has an XP reward along with some sort of money or item incentive. And most tasks will have sort of a quest line that will eventually lead you to rewards you simply could not get through pure gameplay. You don't always have to focus on your tasks, but they are the best way to accelerate your way to consistently better gear. Now I think you are finally prepared to hop into a raid. But when you go to start one, you see 2 different characters. What's all that about? First up is your PMC. PMC raids are basically just your main character. It uses your gear, your skill levels, and your ability to progress your tasks. You will start the raid at the very beginning and have all the risk associated with losing your gear. But you will know exactly what you have and exactly what you are capable of for what you've prepared for. It's just about the only type of raid that actually progresses your level and your ability to get better gear. Quick note here, ensuring your gear is something you can do as you make your way through the map screen to the lobby screen. Insurance allows you to have a chance of getting lost gear back at a price. As long as scavs do not pick up your gear or a player does not extract with it, you will receive it after a day or so. Scav raids are quite a bit different. For starters, your gear is entirely randomized. You could have a pistol, a shotgun, or even a full-on battle rifle. You get thrown into a raid in progress in which players have already been roaming the map for a little while, so you aren't going to be the first one to get to every single loot spot. The 2 important things to note is that you cannot earn XP towards your player level or progress quests the usual way. The only exception to this is that you can still collect items for fetch quests so long as the item is not a special quest item. You can consider this as a no-risk raid where everything you spawn with and collect can be extracted and added to your stash. No scavs will attack you unless you attack them first, so do not shoot everything on sight and be careful. The more you successfully extract on a scav and kill players who have killed other scavs, the more rep you will earn with fence and the better gear you may spawn in with as a scav later on. So let's say you went ahead and picked a PMC raid. Now comes the ultimate decision for what you want to accomplish. Most players would advise you to go ahead and drop into Ground Zero, with the idea being that you will quickly get started on your quests. Personally, I do agree with that decision. However, if you wanted to simply get acquainted with the game's mechanics and movement, that is an excellent decision as well. If you have some buddies who are helping you with your first few raids, I would talk to them about it. Curious about the maps in general? I'll give you a little bit of an overview of them. Ground Zero is one of the smaller maps in the game, taking place in the middle of a city center. This setting means you'll run into some close-range urban combat and many choke points. It's home to some of the first quests that will send you on your Tarkov career. It's an easy-to-understand, beginner-oriented map containing no extremely hard AI enemies and lower-leveled players. Customs is another map that is considered very important to know, as a good majority of quests in the game take place on this map. Because of this, it's a map often associated with lots of PvP. The map itself is very open, consisting of warehouses and broken down structures along a road connected to some woodlands. Located near the map's center is the dormitories, which holds a reputation as being one of the high traffic areas among players. Avoiding the dorms is not something you'll always be able to do either, as a decent number of quests on this map require you to explore this area. Woods is a map with a mixed reputation among the player base. As the name suggests, you are thrown into the middle of a vast woodland area with dirt roads and almost no buildings in sight. Despite this, the map is filled with scavs. It's a map that's rich in loot, but you'd never know it. It's also hard for players to navigate this map without the proper experience in locating where they are. Long-range capability is recommended for this map, as you can spot targets from very far distances with ease. Just be careful navigating yourself, as you are just as easy of a target to find. Interchange is essentially just a giant shopping mall. There is a little bit of area outside of the mall to explore, but all the goodies and danger are located inside. Lots of close to mid-range engagements are the name of the game here, so prep accordingly. Some of the more annoying and lengthy quests are here, but you really won't have to worry about any of that until you reach level 17. There is lots of potential for loot though, so just be sure to consider if it's worth the risk. Reserve? Reserve is personally my least favorite map in the game, but even I know that it is easily one of the most loot-filled maps to choose from. It's filled with buildings, outposts, and even contains a connected underground bunker. The extracts on this map are a bit involved, meaning there is no real easy way for newer or lower-leveled players to get out. This map can get confusing very quick, so I do recommend having someone who is somewhat familiar with it to help you around. It's probably not a good first choice to run this map, but your friends will know better than me. Shoreline is a map that's very open, just like Woods. However, this map is sprinkled with a bit more, containing villages, buildings, and a small outpost in the middle of the field. The very center of the map is also where the most action and loot are home to, which is the resort building. You may not run into players very much when roaming the open woods, but you will definitely find action at each of the POIs on the map. The loot is good if you can find your way around, and the extractions are not that difficult to find either. It's a pretty decent map to learn, even if your only goal is to kill a few scabs. Oh my god, I said scabs. Kill a few scavs, grab a small amount of loot, and leave. Lighthouse is a bit of a scarce map. Overall, it's very narrow, meaning you will 100% find some player action early in a raid. It's got lots of spawns for specialized valuables, but they are all concentrated in the same areas of the map. This is also home to regularly spawned, difficult enemies known as rogues. This is where that small advantage that Yusek has over Bear exists, as the rogues will aggro slightly faster and at slightly longer ranges to Bear players. Across the bridge on the main road will lead you to their base, which is no easy feat to get inside and stay alive, regardless of your faction. Again, the loot is great here. It just may not be worth the trouble of dealing with all the players that rush this area, all the rogues that defend this area, and all the player scavs that will swarm this area. Streets of Tarkov is the biggest, richest, and most chaotic map in the game at the moment. Several city blocks make up the landscape of this map, with a majority of the buildings in sight being even lightly explorable. Everywhere is filled with loot and enemies. This map is also the ultimate test of your computer's power as a result. Despite being one of the large maps in the game, it's actually not that difficult to navigate. All the buildings are pretty easy to read and thus figure out where you are on a map due to context clues. Always keep your ears out for nearby gunfire and footsteps, and this is a very busy map. Keep close to your buddies and make sure your comms are clear, as there are a million different directions to get shot from here. All that considered though, you can make it out huge when you raid streets. The labs is an area that you don't have access to right now. You'll need to get your hands on a labs keycard in order to raid here. Be warned, this is not a beginner map. Highly leveled AI are the only AI that spawn here, and they do so regularly. Most of the players you fight against are well equipped and fully prepared to use everything in their power to kill you. A labs keycard is also valued at around 160,000 rubles as well, being sold to therapists at 68,000. Avoid raiding here for now until you and your friends have both better gear and more experience with gunfights and PvP. So I actually had to go back into the script here because I forgot all about Factory until I was putting this all together. Factory is the smallest map that is currently available. There's not tons of loot to be had here, but you can certainly find it. What you will find is lots of action. Being such a condensed map, lots of players and scav spawns are bundled up very close by. This is where most players will go with some of their best gear to get their fix of PvP. Some of the more annoying quests are located specifically on this map as well, and when combined with the inability to distance yourself from everything else, it can be a frustrating experience. Extracts on this map are almost entirely dependent on having a specific key in the game. Otherwise, you only have one location of escape. Do not be fooled into thinking this is a beginner-friendly map. One last thing. I would go ahead and pull up a map. Yes, like Google search a map of whatever area you have picked. Even if you have friends with you to help you navigate, you will be completely helpless if they leave you behind or die. Constantly try to keep an idea of where you are so that you can begin to understand the map layout and can navigate later without any issues. If possible, find a map that shows you the extractions you have as well. There is a keybind that will straight up tell you the names of your extracts, which you should use as a way to learn how to find said locations. I may delve into map-specific videos later on, but right now the best advice I can give you is listen to your friends, pull up some third-party maps to guide you, and watch some other videos to help you learn as much as possible about map layout. Okay, so while you are loading in, let's bring you up to speed with some of the game's controls for your weapon. For automatic weapons, the first thing you should check is your firing mode. You have Weapon Inspect, which doubles as your malfunction check. You have chamber check, which doubles as your malfunction fix. You have leaning. You have smooth leaning. And sidestepping. You also have a mag check, which gives you an approximate count on the ammo left in your magazine. Some attachments you can mod in Raid. And some you cannot. On the back end of things, you also have some stats on each of the weapons that won't be too important to know until later when you can actually improve them. Ergonomics is basically the speed portion of weapon handling. The weight of a weapon also has an impact on speed, but I'll put it simply. Both weight and ergonomics affect the weapon handling you should expect. Ergonomics is more impactful towards speed, while weight is more impactful on the strength of weapon handling, like holding up your gun when looking down sights. This ability to hold weapon up is due to your arm stamina. Be careful not to hold a weapon up for too long, or you will start to sway badly, and if you wait even longer, you'll start gasping for air and give away your location. Accuracy is measured in this game by MOA, which is the real-life measurement used to determine a weapon's accuracy at a distance. You don't need to know the complex measuring system, but think of it as the bloom of a weapon at range. Rifles will typically have a smaller MOA of 3 or less, which simply put is very accurate. Short-barreled SMGs may have between 10 and 6 MOA, meaning you may start seeing some inconsistency at around 100 meters, where the bullet will not land exactly where you aim. Overall, you're looking for the smallest number possible here, as smaller number means it's more accurate. Durability is a stat to look at, but for the weapons you've started with and have purchased from traders, it will be at 100%. As you start to lower a weapon's durability, you will start to lose some weapons' accuracy little by little, along with having an increasing chance of a weapon malfunction. Scav weapons will always be damaged, with a varying degree of severity. One last detail. You have the ability to swap shoulders on your weapon, meaning you will hold the weapon on your other side. This is useful for peeking to the left around corners, as you will expose yourself less than if you had kept the weapon on the right shoulder. This is completely optional though. I put this here so that you can experiment as you please. So you're probably wondering, how's the movement in this game? Let's start you with the basics. For speed, you have sprinting, vaulting, jumping, and even a dive. Now, obviously vaulting is a bit of a toss-up. Not every obstacle is going to be one short and sweet movement. Vaulting does allow you to ensure you don't get stopped by the smallest bumps and cause a loss in momentum. Jumping is an incredibly useful tool. Firstly, it's useful for getting past dangerous lines of sight without slowing down. Secondly, it allows you to add an extra annoyance to anybody who is aiming for your head when you're trying to evade getting shot. Lastly, there are some impressive spots you can reach when you're timing your jumps correctly. For as great as all this is, you are limited in their use. So your stamina is your limit. And as you level up, you can increase both the potency of your movement and how much stamina you have to work with. I'll direct you over to the skills tab really quickly to take a look at endurance and strength. These two skills are basically entirely what your speed movement is all about. Total stamina, stamina regen, jump height, weight tolerance, etc. As you play Tarkov, these skills will naturally increase. You may not notice the difference after a few days, but you will start to see that you become more capable after many levels have been passed. For managing your character's stealth, or rather how much your character gives away their own position, this is where you start to slow things down. Crouching and proning are both here, and while they do help you keep the noise at a minimum, it's not enough. On top of the fact that you are purposely restricting your ability to act quickly, you are also not moving nearly slow enough for your sound profile to be lowered against the listening opponent. That's where this neat little meter comes in. I call it the speed and sound meter, as that's exactly what it shows you. Using your scroll wheel, you can actually control the walking speed of your character and turn it more into a stalking speed. The little speaker icon right here even gives you a general idea of the level of noise you are making for other players to detect your location, or at the very least a general direction. Bonus tip, you can hold your keybind for crouch and use the scroll wheel to slowly adjust the height that your character stands or crouches. This is especially useful for lowering or raising yourself just out or in a sight line of your targets. Well, alright then. Think you got what it takes to make it out of your first raid? Pretty nerve-wracking feeling, isn't it? Just take a second, relax yourself, and get a feel for your surroundings. The only person who is rushing you right now is yourself. Or your buddy that just popped what looked like painkillers. They are rushing you as well. The name of the game is attention. Finding out where you are using context clues around you. You determine what you came here for. Looking for that quest? Want to grab some loot? Want to fight other players? Or hell, maybe someone of your caliber should start with something simple. Maybe you should just escape. So it's one thing to be told all about how the game works, but what should you do? How can you improve? And how do you stop dying? I decided that maybe learning how the game works isn't enough. Maybe you want to hear from players who have achieved the end game, as they would surely know the answer to those questions. It didn't take me very long to find some credible content creators who are willing to help you, and I trust them to set you on the right path. Here is their advice to you.
I would say a mix between the fact that it seems like there's a lot on the line, right? Like when you play, it keeps my attention because like you're playing for your things every raid. And then also the fact that every raid, even though like I play interchange more than any other map, I can play interchange every raid and it's still not going to be the same every raid. Like there's always different things that are going to happen. It's never the same.
What makes Tarkov different from other games is, I mean, the looting system, the gun building, risk to reward factor is big. It's also a game that rewards map knowledge. The more hours and time that you put into the game, the more of an advantage you're going to have, like by a lot too.
It's fleshed out. Everything feels good. Like the movement feels good. They've spent so much time making sure everything feels good. I personally think that obviously there's so many games that are trying to be like Tarkov and they rush it, or they're like trying to be like Tarkov and then they may not rush it, but they don't spend enough time on it.
Tarkov's different from other games. The risk reward is definitely much bigger in Tarkov than any other game that I've ever played.
What makes Tarkov different from other games? The level of adrenaline rush or like satisfactory I get from just killing somebody or getting something done. There's nothing to match it to. There's nothing more difficult and more rewarding than playing Tarkov for me at the moment. I mean, like maybe Elden Ring, maybe that's a close substitute, but like in terms of like PvP and stuff, doing everything is hard, so getting anything done feels more real. Exactly.
I think it's difficult because of the complexity. It's also very grindy and not really great for the casual, let's get on for a little bit after work type.
And I would say Tarkov is more complex than it is difficult, but I don't think that there's a difference between something being difficult or complex. It's not supposed to be easy to do.
No, it's difficult. It's difficult for sure. It's complex, but it's definitely a difficult game. I don't think anyone who's ever hopped onto Tarkov and been like, oh, this is easy.
Is Tarkov actually difficult or is it just complex? It's actually difficult. You have to learn a lot. There's a lot to Tarkov. There's about 1,000 hours before you actually understand. So yes, it's both. It's very difficult and it's very complex.
Tarkov in itself is complex and difficult. It's not like I have trained my brain to get better at every single video game from playing Tarkov, right? I don't know. It's just this game drew me in because of how difficult it was, right? Because you gotta remember, chat, I was a CS:GO player. Like before I started playing Tarkov, I played CS religiously. Like I was a scout main on CS:GO because I wanted something difficult.
Most important thing initially is just going to be learning the maps and knowing extracts. I would say like know the extracts, then somewhat understand the spawns. Then you can like plan for where you're going to run into people or kind of know where you're going to expect to run into people.
Put hours in, man. Play PvE, play with friends to learn something, but don't play with friends that just want to chat out with you there and give you shit. Like you actually have to be in situations where you have to learn the game and you're forced to learn and get better, not just be carried by somebody. So learn to be self-sufficient, 100%. And I feel like Tarkov has given you all the tools that you need with PvE and offline raids to do that. With the wiki and everything else, every tool that you have in your arsenal, there's no reason why you can't invest 2 to 3 hours a day, hour or two, even if you don't have that much time to give, to be self-sufficient. That's my advice. Because when I first started playing, I was playing with people and I wasn't learning anything until I started playing by myself.
Most important info a new player should learn would be maps. You gotta learn the maps. That alone, like, will take you so far.
Spawns and extraction points. So map knowledge, yes, map knowledge, 100%.
What do you believe new players is important to learn? The map. Before you do anything, I would run like 3 PvE raids of the map. Try to get yourself somewhat familiar with it before you go in to fight people that know the map like the back of their hand. Your position is everything in this game. Wrong spot, you're getting shot from somewhere else. You know what I mean? And honestly, what I feel like most important to a new player is to find a community like ours.
I think, this is me, I think it's best to play by yourself because then you're not relying on other people to show you. I just learn better. Like I learn the maps better if I'm playing and forcing myself to do it by myself. If I'm following people around to like some place that I don't know, I'm not gonna like commit it to the direction and my memory as well. But also like now they have PvE. I think PvE is probably a great way, or single player Tarkov or offline Tarkov is a great way to learn.
Solo. It's easier. It can be discouraging, but knowing that the only thing that you have to shoot is everything else that you hear versus I feel like playing with people is a lot harder. Maybe with like one Sherpa and one other person, they can teach you the ropes with things, but I think the best way to learn Tarkov is by yourself. It'll turn you into a better player.
New players? No, I would go with a squad and don't do a full squad. Like one person, maybe 2 people to show you around and that's about it. Any more than that, it gets confusing. And solo is, I think, just too difficult to learn. It's so much easier to learn the game with somebody. Even if you start as a new player and you have a friend that wants to learn, learning together is great.
Is solo Tarkov good for new players or should they fill up a squad? For new players, I think it's good to have someone. I think new players, it's good to have somebody. At some point of their Tarkov career, they need to play solo to learn how to PvP and move and how to take on fights like that.
Okay, I'm gonna keep it a buck. Playing solo Tarkov is the most masochistic way to play it. What you really should do is get a good duo partner that you guys can rely on each other and learn the game. That's what made it super easy with me. Just one-on-one sessions with somebody that has a little bit more skill than you, like knows the general premise of Tarkov and like what to get done. Or I don't know, when you need to get a couple of quests done, you know, you come play community nights with us on Saturdays. I do run raids with people. I do a little bit of chirping here and there.
If I stop dying, you're never gonna stop dying. I think the most important thing is to just know that you are going to die and not let it affect how you play. That's what it comes down to, is gear fear. As soon as you can not worry about losing your gear, it really allows you to just play freely. The way I always look at it is it's like it's not my gun, it's just my gun for right now. It's not my it's just what I get to use at this moment in time.
I would say if you're dying too much, slow down. Learn how to shoot and scoot. Try not to stay where you create commotion at. And learn the hot zones. Like, learn where the flow of the map is. And that's what I mean by playing the game. You're going to learn the most, because you'll know that if you're on customs, dorm, stronghold, gas station, quest items, player spawns, there's so much to learn as far as the flow of each individual map. So if you feel like you're dying a lot, slow down.
Asking the wrong person.
How do you stop dying? You don't. You always die, freak. You always die in Tarkov. You can be the best player in Tarkov, you're still gonna die. No matter what. Practice makes perfect. Tarkov taketh, Tarkov giveth. In reality, you could be the best player in the world on Tarkov, and you're gonna die. It's just how it is. Yeah, I just key it, dude.
Like, even 10K hour Giga Chads still will catch themselves in a wrong spot. What we're telling you to do is how to mitigate how much it hurts, right? So sometimes you just kick Tarkov. That's why the saying exists, sweetheart. I'm gonna be honest with you.
A real quick thank you to everyone who has supported me on this project, and for the patience of you all since I took my little small hiatus. I'll be back with another weapon guide before too long, but this was a video I was very excited to make. One last thing. This video was made in collaboration with TonyPiff, who is an awesome Tarkov content creator who truly lives up to his WTTV brand. He will be making a video with a similar teaching purpose that appeals to players who wish to up their game and improve their chances out in the higher levels. So, briefly tell me about yourself.
I've been playing Tarkov since around 2018 when Reserve released. So I think it's 12.12 release, if I'm not mistaken.
How many wipes was that?
God, probably around like maybe football in here, maybe what, 10?
Damn.
12 wipes maybe?
So you've earned Kappa, you've gone to Lightkeeper, and as far as I know, you've taken on just about every event the game has thrown. What's next? Like, what's next on your agenda?
Honestly, it's just continuing having fun, playing the game, PvPing. That's my main enjoyment out of this game now. I played every single angle that this game could offer. I've played the sniper angle. I've held myself in a bush before. And now all I like to do is just press W, so, you know.
Does that mean that you like Arena as well?
Oh, Arena is a great time, honestly. Especially if you need to warm up for some EFT, or if you want to, like, you know, get competitive.
Okay.
Arena is definitely something really good.
Where and when can people find you? Like, where can they find you playing? Can they find videos that you post?
Oh, 100%. I'm streaming 7 to 12, Monday through Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday, basically just whenever the time is, just tune in. Hop in the Discord, you'll get an alert. And as well, I have a TikTok and YouTube with content being posted, I think 3 times a week. So you can catch up all on that type of information over there as well.
I'll post those links in the description, but at the same time, you can find all of those over on his stream as well. Is there anything that you wish to say to some brand new players, or hell, really anybody that finds their way here in this video?
Well, towards a brand new player base, honestly, if you guys are still trying to figure out what you want to do with this game, if you want to get it, it's a difficult learning curve. If you have the time to play it, definitely go for it. But my main thing for the main player, for brand new, is map knowledge. As soon as you have that map locked down, you can have the worst shot in the game. You will still be overthrowing everyone.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Tony.
Anytime, baby.
If you found a majority of this information to simply be a repeat of what you know, I promise you that Tony will hook you up with the proper tools of the trade. I hope you enjoyed the video and perhaps learned something new. Be sure to subscribe.